Hey everyone, welcome. It's Kenlyn, and this is your update for the week of June 16th to the 23rd. We have a lot going on as usual. We have more squares, more challenges, and then the energy completely shifts. And I'm calling this week the big shift. And using this shift of energy as kind of a marker between before and after. We had the first half of 2024, and then we'll have the second half of 2024 going into 2025. So let's presence some of the things that are happening. Well, this week later, we have a full moon, and we have a full moon in Capricorn at 0 degrees or 1 degree, because we have the sun moving into Capricorn. And just as the sun gets 1 degree, the moon and the sun are opposite each other at that 1 degree point in Cancer and Capricorn, that axis point, this internal home, and then this external way that our purpose works in the world, Capricorn. So we have Venus and Mercury and the sun changing signs. The moon is always changing signs every 2.5 days or two to 3 days. But these players are changing signs between like 25 and like 28 days. And so they're staying together from their time in Aries. We had Taurus, Gemini, and now they're coming together in Cancer. So you can feel that the energy from Gemini, which is highly extroverted, very social, very mental, very communicative, and it could be scattered and overwhelmed. You can see where Cancer's needed after that. And we need some water. We need to take our whole bodies into the ocean or into the bathtub and just soak. That's the metaphor after all of that Gemini energy, that highly active Gemini energy. So Cancer is going to be more of an inward journey, and that demarcation for this week and the shift happens at this solstice period. Now, the solstice with the equinox is the way we carve up our quarters in astrology. So we're in now the quarter of the solstice, getting ready for that equinox in September. So here we are in this next slice. So remember from I think it was last week, we talked about Neptune being at 29 degrees of Pisces. Now, Neptune's a super slow moving planet, so it's still there. It's still at 29 degrees. And therefore, all these movements from Gemini into Cancer are going to hit over that 29 degree point. And in fact, we are, as this time right now, we're in that Mercury, and we'll be in the sun time of 29 degrees, the end of the cycle of that sign. So as these 3 planets complete their journey of Gemini, and think of it that way for yourself, that you're completing a Gemini journey wherever that is in your chart. Jupiter is still there and will be there for a while, but the energy that we're really related to on a daily basis is moving on to Cancer. And so it'll hit that 29 degree point as a square, another challenge point, another point of when something isn't very clear, or it appears to be a point of stuckness where a decision has to be made. And that can show up in so many different ways, or in your chart, really not that significant. But just presencing that when we're in Squareville, we're all feeling the intensity. And that's something that I've heard throughout last week. Last week's intensity with the squares brought me to my knees. I had a call with the presenters of the Goddess Convergence, and it was beautiful, but I was on my knees. And I was in that moment, and I want to presence this because the sisters really helped me birth Goddess Convergence through their witness and their medicine. And these were presenters. So we were all acknowledging ourselves as wise women, medicine women. And I had this moment where I was like, I'm done. I cannot carry on anymore. And they were reflecting back to me that's the moment in pregnancy when the midwives and the doulas know that the baby will be born very soon, when the mother is just like done. So I appreciate that witness. I appreciate being held in sisterhood and having that birth happen. And there was a square that day. And then the next day, I felt this lightness and an ability to really shed that like I knew I was coming to an end of a cycle and that I was actually beginning something new. So that's what's happening on the bigger cosmological level, endings and beginnings. And we've been talking about that for a long time, and we're going to keep talking about that because we have another big one coming up, but not until September. So just forewarned, is to really orient your drishti, your inner gaze, your third eye gaze in a way that supports the flow of your life, because things will get more intense later this year. There's a Mars retrograde later. There's Saturn retrograde coming at the end of June. Pluto's already in retrograde. Jupiter's going to go retrograde. So there's going to feel like a big slowdown. So it's good that now, when you're feeling inspired and on it, do something about it. Don't wait, don't wait, don't wait. And this full moon's going to give us a dose of self-care along with the don't wait. So that's going to be an interesting juxtaposition with the full moon. And I'll do a little update on that full moon later so that you can tune in separately to both of these transmissions. I think the thing to say about this one is that there's also going to be a Mercury squaring the North Node, and that's going to be more toward the end of the week. And that's going to feel like we've lost the plot. So at any point where you feel like you were so on purpose, especially in that Gemini energy, or maybe it was during the solar eclipse energy and you were just on it, and then boom, you feel like you just lost the plot. What am I doing? Why do I have all these obstacles? I want you to take a deep breath. Let's just do that now. Yeah, let it go, surrender. That was the message that the presenters gave to me pre-Goddess Convergence as we roll out on June 25th to the 29th. They were just like, it's time to surrender. So there gets to be a moment when all of that hard work has been put in play, and then you surrender. And if you hit that square and you lose the plot, you just hold space for yourself. You surrender in that moment because you already know that you did the work. That's my experience with Goddess Convergence. I already know that I did the work. And now what my work is to do is to surrender. And I'll put that link in there. I want all of you who are listening to be a part of this, and you can register as well. So the bigger thing that's happening on a collective level is the transformation of the United States. And if you had a bird's eye view, you could see all the ways that our culture, our country is being transformed. And if you're watching this from another country, you have even a better perspective than I do being in here, probably, or a different one anyway. And so just a presence, Pluto hit. So transiting Pluto hit the United States' natal Pluto, that it does, I think it's every 286 years. It takes that long for Pluto to come back around to where it was natally. So no human will ever experience a natal Pluto return, but countries can. And it's been known that countries get into a war and they have major changes happening whenever that transit to the natal Pluto happens. It's really a reckoning of power and a complete shift of our identity. And because the United States has really been the main currency, the dollar been the main currency, a global leader, this is the moment of reckoning. And this is where a lot of countries lose their power, or let's say really that the power redistributes in a different way. And certainly the currency and the way that Pluto in Aquarius is bringing new currencies, Uranus as well, that is shifting the power of the US dollar. So a lot of that is happening. I'm not going to go into the geometry of it, but there are squares that are hitting the natal Pluto point, because Pluto is retrograde in Aquarius, and in September, October, November, we'll go back into Capricorn and hit that place that it was hitting during COVID. And so that's what I'm saying. We're not through it. We're going back. And there's retrogrades have us go back and revisit territory. And let's take it on that we're revisiting it for who have we become now? Who am I now? Who is the United States now? And yeah, it's a dirty, ugly birth. It's a messy birth. And we get to hold space for that. And we also know in the divine feminine community that who we're becoming as we own our power, as we own our voice as leaders, we're changing the trajectory. We're creating a new timeline. And I fully believe that we're awakening to that this 3D is not really all there is. And in fact, in so many ways, it hides the truth, because our brains, as I mentioned, can only handle so much. It can only handle so much change. It can only handle so much novelty. So it consciously filters it out to keep our reality the same. And these squares break it down so that we have to see something new. That's potent. It's not comfortable, but it's really, really potent. Okay, I'm going to stop there. I will say that 0 degree point into Cancer is a world axis point. I love that. And that's a threshold crossing. That's something new. It's the beginning of a new cycle again. And again, we have all these new cycles, but that's how I feel like the universe is honorable, continually giving us a taste of it. And then we get to shed some more, and then a taste of it and shed some more as we are becoming, unbecoming, becoming. We're here to merge duality in us and know ourselves as all of it. And that's really what the joke is of all this polarity and polarization, is that each side is pointing to each other. And the only thing in between that is a mirror looking back. So when we really get that we are that thing on the end of that pointing finger, then we'll start to come into more of a oneness consciousness, and all of that BS of that fighting is going to dissolve. And that's really the legend of the 1,000 goddesses that I'm going to tell you on day 1 of the Goddess Convergence, June 25th. So a lot of intensity happening. Prepare yourself for the second half of the year. Get your projects going with enough momentum. Tune into the full moon, because there's a message about self-care and your projects. And just know that we're here to feed a particular frequency. We didn't come back here to feed the old shit. We did not. We came here to midwife its death. And that means certain implications in our lives, certain consequences in our lives. But as priestesses, I said this today on the Sisterhood Activation, we die many deaths so that we can birth a new world. That is our role. So if we get related to the higher octave of what we're here to do, then we can leave behind that lower part of fear, overwhelm, confusion, and a desire for safety that cannot be found in this 3D world. I hope that serves, and may all beings benefit from the merits of our efforts.